You just spent 6 weeks finding the right person. You interviewed a dozen candidates, you checked references, you made the offer, and they said yes. And then on their first day, you handed them a laptop, a badge, and a folder of paperwork, and left them alone in a conference room. This is the moment most companies lose the hire they just fought so hard to win. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like Tuesday. But the research tells a very different story. Something is happening in that first week that most organizations never measure. And by the time it shows up in the numbers, it's already too late to fix. Here's the strange part. New employees rarely quit because of pay. They rarely quit because the job was too hard. What Glassdoor's own economic research found in a widely cited 2015 analysis is that organizations with a strong onboarding process improve new hire retention by 82%. 82%. That number should stop you. It means the difference between someone staying for years and someone quietly job hunting by month 3 often isn't the offer letter. It's what happens in the days right after they sign it. So what actually goes wrong? Talia Bauer, a researcher at Portland State University who has spent decades studying organizational onboarding, identified a framework that explains why so many onboarding programs fail without anyone noticing. She calls it the 4 C's: compliance, clarification, culture, and connection. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most companies only ever do the first one. Compliance is the paperwork, the tax forms, the handbook signature, the laptop setup. It's necessary, but it's also the easiest box to check, so it becomes the whole program. Clarification means the new hire actually understands what their job is and what success looks like. Culture means they understand the unwritten rules, the way decisions really get made, the things nobody puts in a slide deck. And connection means they've built real relationships with the people around them. Ask yourself which of those for your company actually delivers in week 1. Most organizations stop at compliance and quietly assume the rest will happen on its own. It doesn't. And the cost of that assumption is enormous because a new hire's brain is doing something specific in those first days, whether anyone plans for it or not. Psychologists call it uncertainty reduction. From the moment someone walks in the door, their mind is scanning for signals. Do people like me here? Am I doing this right? Does anyone notice if I disappear for an hour? In the absence of clear information, the brain doesn't stay neutral. It fills the gap with the worst-case interpretation. Silence gets read as disapproval. Vague instructions get read as a trap. A missed introduction gets read as exclusion. This isn't a personality flaw in the new hire. It's simply how uncertain environments get processed by anyone in any organization at any level. Gallup's long-running workplace research, much of it led by Jim Harder, found that employees who strongly agree they had a great onboarding experience are far more likely to be engaged at work well beyond that first month. The effect isn't a short-term bump, it compounds, and that compounding works in the opposite direction too. A rocky first 2 weeks doesn't just create a rocky first 2 weeks. It sets the emotional baseline the employee measures every future interaction against. Think about what that means practically. If someone's manager forgets to introduce them to the team, that person doesn't think, "My manager is busy." They think, "I don't matter here yet." If nobody explains how meetings actually get decided, they don't ask. They guess quietly and often guess wrong. If their first project has no clear definition of what done looks like, they don't come back and ask for clarity because asking in an unfamiliar environment feels like admitting weakness. So they stay quiet, do their best guess, and wait to be corrected. Here's the twist most companies miss entirely. The employees most likely to disengage silently during a bad onboarding aren't the underperformers. They're often the strongest hires. Skilled people have other options. They've been through good onboarding somewhere before, so they recognize a bad one immediately, and they don't stick around to see if it improves. The employees who tolerate a chaotic first month longest are sometimes the ones with the fewest alternatives, which means weak onboarding doesn't just cost you retention. It quietly reshapes who stays. So what does a program built on all 4 C's actually look like instead of just the first one? It starts before day 1. Berson's workforce research, widely cited across the HR industry, points to pre-boarding, meaning contact with the new hire between the signed offer and the start date, as one of the highest leverage and most underused steps in the entire process. A short welcome message, a simple explanation of what the first week will look like. It costs almost nothing, and it closes the uncertainty gap before it even opens. Clarification means the new hires manager sits down in the first week and defines what success looks like at 30, 60, and 90 days in specific and concrete terms, not vague encouragement. Culture means someone actively explains the things a handbook can't capture, how feedback is really given here, what urgent actually means in this company, who to ask when you're stuck. And connection means deliberately introducing the new hire to people outside their immediate team, not leaving it to chance, because relationships that form by accident take months, and relationships that are structured take days. None of this requires a bigger budget. It requires treating the first 90 days as a designed experience rather than a formality to get through. Most companies design their interview process with enormous care and then treat the onboarding process as an afterthought, even though the second one determines whether the first one was worth the effort. There's a broader pattern hiding underneath all of this, and it isn't really about HR paperwork at all. It's about how humans respond to unfamiliar environments in general. You feel it every time you walk into a room where you don't know anyone. You feel it on the first day of a new school, a new city, a new team. The instinct to look for cues, to read silence as meaning something, to fill uncertainty with your own worst guess is not a workplace quirk. It's a basic feature of how people orient themselves in any new environment, and organizations that understand this design for it, while organizations that don't simply hope it works out. Which brings the story back to that conference room and that new hire sitting alone with a laptop and a folder. It isn't a broken process because someone was careless. It's a broken process because compliance was mistaken for the whole job. The paperwork got done, the person did not get onboarded. And somewhere around month 3, when they quietly stop raising their hand in meetings, or their applications on LinkedIn start updating a little more often, most managers will never trace it back to that first Tuesday. They'll just call it a bad fit. But it was never a bad fit. It was a bad first impression that nobody designed, left to fill itself in with silence, and the fix was never expensive. It just had to be intentional. You spent 6 weeks finding the right person. The real work was only just beginning the moment they said yes,